The 18th Simonyi Conference's closing presentation is about privacy engineering at Google. This is an exciting role, and Judit Szabó will tell us about it. Please welcome on stage Judit Szabó.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Judit. I am a privacy engineer at Google's Privacy and Data Protection Office. And I'm very excited to talk to you about privacy engineering at Google today. A brief overview of what these 25 minutes will consist of. I will talk to you very briefly about how I came to privacy within Google, and then we'll take a deep dive into privacy strategies, things we can do in our product development to mitigate privacy risks. In the second part, I'm going to talk more about what privacy engineering looks like within Google. And then, at the end, I will have a Learn More slide. And I know that will be the end of the presentation, and it's usually boring and it's full of text. But I promise you, it's full of super good resources. If you're interested in student opportunities, or if you're looking to get involved with Google, there are many, many useful links that you want to keep your eyes peeled for. So briefly, I joined Google in 2019 May, almost 3 years ago. I have a bachelor's in IT. I studied here in Budapest at what is now Óbuda University. And I have a master's degree from the University of Massachusetts, Boston, in education. So I joined as an instructional designer, and very soon I had the fantastic opportunity to work on privacy trainings. So right from the start, I knew that this was a super interesting field, and this was the direction in which I wanted to build my career. So I started to look for opportunities in engineering. And through a 20% project, yes, these mythical 20% projects do exist, I got in touch with amazing privacy groups and experts within Google. And gradually, over about 2 years, I had a chance to deepen my expertise and build up to a full-time role, which I'm looking forward to talk to you about today. But first, let's take a quick look at our motto. So we always say that we create, design, and build for everyone. But what exactly does that mean? Diversity and inclusion are core values within Google. So we want to build and create a diverse and equal workspace, and we kind of center this around racial equity as well. So if you're interested in this, our goals and commitments in this area, you can go to diversity.google and learn more about how we are trying to achieve this. And while we, the workforce, and our users are diverse with very different backgrounds, very different lifestyles, certainly super different product preferences, there is one thing that at least most of us care about, and it's privacy. We all want transparency and control over how our data is used. And this need was codified in regulations such as the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation here in Europe. And there are many similar initiatives all around the world. So why is privacy important to Google? Google wants to build products that are helpful for everyone. So think about how you get your search results in the correct language in the first place, or how you get traffic information via Google Maps. Google uses data to achieve all these things, and this largely depends on Google's ability to do amazing things with data. So how do we do this? We do this primarily in 3 ways. First, we want to make products helpful to you personally. So think about how you get, like, how we save your preferences, for example, so that the products work exactly the way you want them to across all your devices. And second, we also use data in aggregate. So my favorite example for this is Google Translate. I use it a lot. I'm based in Munich, but my German is not so good. So I rely on Google Translate a lot, and I'm sure you use it as well in every day. And when you do so, you're benefiting from years of sophisticated language learning research, voice-to-speech technology, or even computer vision technology if you're using Lens to input what you're trying to translate. And third, data helps Google to serve ads that are relevant and provide the revenue that keeps Google products safe. And, Google products not only safe, but accessible without payment. And also not just Google products, but the content of site owners and developers who feature Google Ads. So all this is done, the bottom line is Google works with a lot of data to help create helpful products. But this is all done with privacy in mind. We know that users want transparency, choice, and control over how their data is used and managed. So this is where privacy engineering comes to mind. We help developers and product teams to build products that are privacy safe and offer a privacy-first user experience. But a little bit more on that later. First, let's take a look at what does a privacy engineer do? What kind of things we look into when we consult product teams? What kind of questions do we ask? So if I manage to get my slides right, yes. The first very important aspect that we review is collection. So what data does the product collect is our main concern here. Does every data point collected have a clear purpose within the product? Once that is clarified, we want to look at potential aggregation or summarization opportunities, or maybe minimizing data collection. For example, if or another mitigation could be to use like less precise data. That's also something that we could consider here. For example, if to determine whether you're eligible for a train ticket discount, your exact date of birth may not need to be collected. Your age, or maybe an age band, like you're between 18 or 26, should suffice to determine if you're part of the eligible target audience. The second aspect we want to think about here is separation. So many systems are centralized, meaning all of the data sits in one place. Separating some of the data could be a valid privacy strategy. For example, if you're adding your fingerprint to a Pixel phone, that fingerprint never leaves the device, so it's not sent to servers or anywhere. It stays on the device, and it's not accessible to the apps on the device. So they are merely notified of the result of the authentication process. By keeping the sensitive biometric data safe from the rest of the user data and separate from other processes, can help keep it safe. Another aspect privacy engineers can advise on is notice and consent. If you remember, on the previous slide, we talked about transparency, choice, and control. So this is targeting the transparency goal that we talked about. Are users aware that their data is being collected? That's super important. is there a meaningful or appropriate consent point within the product? This is a little bit more complex than it sounds. It's not just a yes or no, because if you want to give precise information to users, then you would have to present them like a wall of text in legalese that really no one wants to read. So ideally, consent language is layered, meaning that the key points are called out in an easy-to-read, concise language, and then there's an option to dig deeper if someone wishes to do so. If you go into your Google account and check the data and privacy section, it walks you through some of the key controls that you can manage, but you also have the option to read how exactly your location data is used if you choose to turn it on. And of course, another thing that we want to take a look at is control. So what kind of controls does the product offer for users to manage or exercise their privacy rights? For example, are they able to delete their data via the product? Is there an option? Should they have one? It's not always evident. For example, if data is collected for real-time processing only and is automatically wiped out after being processed, then including a user-initiated deletion mechanism in the product may not be a meaningful privacy mitigation at all. Whereas if the data is collected and stored for a longer time, then it might make sense to include a delete button or at least a pointer to how users can request that data to be deleted. And another point I want to mention here is access. Access should be obviously limited to only people who have a need to know, and it has to be justified always. And other thing or nuances we can consider here are things like, for example, support engineers sometimes need break glass access in case of emergency, but that kind of access can be limited in time. So it's only valid for a limited window and not more, and obviously can be logged so that it can be tracked. So this is by no means a comprehensive list or a complete list of all the privacy strategies out there. The appropriate privacy strategies depend on what the product does. So they will be different case by case by definition. But if you'd like to learn more, I highly recommend, if you can see it from me, the little blue book of privacy. There will be a link at the end on the last slide. This goes through a lot of these privacy strategies and more, and also has a lot of easy to understand practical examples on how these strategies can be applied. So next, I'd like to talk to you about what privacy engineering looks like within Google. Our goal, privacy engineers' goal, is to help product teams get privacy right. So there are privacy engineers, but keeping our users' data safe is everyone's responsibility, not just privacy engineers. We do have a central organization, though, what I mentioned before, the PDPO, or Privacy and Data Protection Office, which consists of privacy experts with various backgrounds, ranging from software engineering to privacy policy experts. And PDPO helps facilitate the work of thousands of global cross-functional Googlers in support of company-wide privacy initiatives, research, employee-facing tools, user-facing products, privacy infrastructure, and a lot more. And obviously, we need product-focused groups as well. This is naturally a very wide scope, so we have expert groups, Yep. We have specialist groups, such as the YouTube privacy team or the Chrome privacy team, and so on. My team, the privacy consulting EMEA team, help developers and product teams get privacy right in this region. And we consult these teams on many of the strategies that we just discussed. And we do so by engaging early in the design process. I'm trying to advance my slide. There we go. Okay, so how do we take privacy into account in our development processes? As I just mentioned, we engage early. As soon as there is a proposal for a new product or a new feature, privacy engineers or privacy experts are there in the discussions with the product team. And we make privacy a central topic in these discussions. So we analyze the potential risks, privacy risks. We identify the appropriate mitigations, and we are there with the product team from beginning to end. We partner with them to ensure that they come up with a privacy-safe design. And last, but certainly not least, we also consult with legal teams to ensure that the product is compliant with regional regulations in all the regions where it will be available. So next, let me walk you through an example that you may actually have at your fingertips right now. With a show of hands, and not that I can see the audience very much, you're a little bit dark, but how many of you have used your Google account to manage your privacy settings or security settings at all? Okay, so that's almost over half of the people. That's very good. Give me a second. So I'm super happy to hear that this is a well-known feature, because our Munich teams built this in 2015, and it's the central hub where Google users can come and manage their privacy and security settings. Over 20 million users use the Google account for this purpose every day, and 3.5 million of them in Europe, and about 20 of them are here in this room. So we know that users want control and transparency over what is shared, what is deleted. So they want to do this. But we also know that not everyone is a privacy engineer at heart. Not everyone wakes up and says, oh, I want to change my privacy settings today. So I think it's super important to make sure that privacy controls are easy to follow, easy to use, and also that they default to a privacy positive setting. We recently launched our auto-delete options, which allows users to have Google automatically and continuously delete their data. And more recently, we also announced that these settings will be set to auto-delete, even if the user doesn't take any action, when they turn on like location history or web and app activity in their account. Sorry, I'm not texting, I'm just looking at my notes. So the previous example was an example of how privacy works in practice for the individual user. Next, let's take a look at two examples, on a wider scale. Techniques like differential privacy can help companies gain insight from their data while ensuring mathematically or algorithmically that the individual's data cannot be re-identified from the results. Unfortunately, the technical background for differential privacy is out of scope for this talk. We have 5 minutes left. But there's an interesting blog post about Google Maps specifically and how it uses differential privacy. I will include a link at the end on the boring slide. So be sure to check it out if you're interested. And another example, more recent, is the COVID-19 mobility reports. The Maps team worked with the privacy team to pull these reports, and they used aggregated and anonymized data to gain insight of what has changed during the COVID-19 lockdowns. And finally, on an industry scale, Google is driving the Privacy Sandbox initiative, inviting players from the rest of the industry to work together and develop new technologies that help us move away from things like advertising ID and cookies, and develop new solutions that will limit the tracking of individuals, but still enable publishers and content providers to keep their content free of charge. So this is an exciting project. I like to think of this as a future of privacy, so definitely recommend checking it out. Now, at this point, you might be wondering where all this is happening. Did you know that the Google Safety Engineering Center was just around the corner? It opened in Munich in 2019, so almost 3 years ago. And it's also home to the European branch of PDPO. So this is where, with over 200 engineers, we design, build, and test all the security and privacy features. This is our global headquarters for safety and security. We not only build for ourselves, we also try to share our solutions and technologies where possible, of course, with the industry, with other companies, with researchers, so we can raise the industry standard and not just the standards for our users. So yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you about this, and I think this is really the center of some of Google's most important work. You can learn more if you're interested. You can learn more at safety.google/engineering-center. And if you're interested in Munich specifically, then just append a -Munich at the end. I believe GSEC also has a presence in Zurich and Dublin here in Europe. Okay, and finally, the resources slide. Again, take a picture if you like. I try to get out of the way. These are amazing resources. The first one is the Build Your Future site at g.co/buildyourfuture. You can find information about the roles, like student programs, events, and essentially everything that you need to know if you want to get involved in not just in privacy, but anything else in Google. And the g.co/tech-dev-guide is also a great resource, not only for skill development, but also for interview prep and resumes and all that kind of stuff. I mentioned diversity, equity, and inclusion. You can check out all these goals and commitments that I mentioned at the beginning at diversity.google. And if you're interested in Google coding competitions, either as an individual or a team, you can go to g.co/coding competitions, and you can build your skills here and also compete against other teams or other developers if you wish to do so. And there's also g.co scholarships, where you can learn more about Google-funded opportunities to support your education. And the last two links, I mentioned these during the presentation. The first is the Little Blue Book. Again, this discusses privacy strategies and gives practical examples on how these can be applied in product development. And there's also a link to the blog entry from earlier that talks about how differential privacy was used in Google Maps specifically. So with that, I just put these two links on the slide, and I thank you for your attention, and we can see if there are any questions.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. We have some questions.
The
first one.
Thank you.
So the first question is, are there any other advantages of separating data from security?
From security. Access. So if you have data in two places, you can manage access control differently. So you can set the ACL or access control list differently from one set of the data and differently from the other. That's just an example.
Thank you. And the second question is, do you have any advice regarding data protection for students who are just about to begin their career in software development?
Career advice?
Yes.
I assume that absolutely all of that are on the previous slide. My advice is go to the first Build Your Future site and check it out. Be aware of these resources. And also, another great thing you can do is to find people who do what you want to do and ask them for advice. And also, they might be able to put you in touch with opportunities. So networking is just as important in career building as skills development. Be aware of that.
Thank you. And the last question is, can you tell how a privacy engineering project works? What are the main stages of a project?
So I think I mostly addressed that on one of the slides, but the main focus is getting in touch with the product team. So we get a product design that we review. So we identify the privacy risks, we identify the appropriate mitigations, we talk to the team, understand what's possible. From privacy, we always want to limit everything. Product teams always want to do everything. So we're trying to find a balance between those two interests. And finally, when we come to a conclusion, we document all this. So this is very important that all this is auditable and it can be referenced in the future and can be also be provided for review for external audit companies.
Thank you so much for the answers and the presentation as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.